Welcome to Acuity Acumen, the podcast where we illuminate leadership and inspire change. I'm Deanna Armstrong, an executive coach working with leaders in the life sciences and biotech industries to help them sharpen their leadership skills and drive real change. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Armstrong Walker Coaching and Consulting, where we empower leaders to reach their full potential. As AI continues to transform industries, the need for soft skills like self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and authentic leadership has never been greater. With CEO tenures at an all-time low, leaders today face high pressure to not only reinvent their organizations, but themselves. It's not enough to manage strategy. You need to connect authentically with your teams and lead with purpose. Each week, we'll explore actionable strategies to help you navigate this high-stakes environment with confidence. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and follow Acuity Acumen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Now, let's dive into today's conversation. Welcome to Acuity Acumen, the podcast where we illuminate leadership and inspire change. I'm Deanna Armstrong, an executive coach working with leaders in the life sciences and biotech industries to help them sharpen their leadership skills and drive real impact. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Armstrong Walker Coaching and Consulting, where we empower leaders to reach their full potential. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and follow Acuity Acumen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Now let's dive into today's conversation. I'm excited to welcome Dr. Bridgette Kirkpatrick, a biotechnology professor at Collin College with a wealth of experience in the field. Bridgette is dedicated to shaping the next generation of leaders in biotech education. Welcome to the podcast, Bridgette.
Thank you.
So glad to have you here. So one of the things we do, we talk about leadership, and then of course I would love to learn more about what you're doing in this wonderful world of biotech. Okay. So before we get into the leadership, can you just tell us a little about who you are and how you got into biotech?
How I got into biotech. So I actually started as an animal science researcher. Actually, I did my PhD in animal science, studying reproductive physiology. I went on to do a postdoc at the University of California, San Diego. And what I always knew is that I wanted to teach. Mm-hmm. And when I got pregnant with my first child, I decided I wanted to move closer to family and raise my children close to family. And so I got a job teaching biotechnology. And as it was close to family, and that's where I could work and was qualified. Mm-hmm. So I got the best of both worlds of being able to teach lab skills mm-hmm. and be in a lab and doing lab work. Because somewhere along the way in my graduate program, I learned that I just loved doing lab work.
Really?
For whatever reason that
Awesome.
was. And so it was the best of both worlds of getting to teach and do lab work.
Good. And I guess like some of our viewers may be new to this biotech industry. So what is lab work?
So basically I teach, I learned very, very early that they needed skills to be able to go into a lab. I wanted them to have the skills that what I would want to hire somebody if I had a research lab. Okay. So learning to pipette, learning to make solutions, doing lab math. Math is the bane of many people's existence. And so really simplifying that down to them being able to do it and practice and mastering those skills. So mastering just basic lab skills that you can apply to any type of industry, whether it's animal science, plant science. Obviously those are my two main loves. Mm-hmm. But going into a research lab, going into an industrial lab, those same skills apply no matter what you're doing in the sciences. And so that was my goal, is to get them the basic skills that they need, and then they can go on and know that they know how to learn.
Very important, right? Know that you know how to learn,
right,
and understand you're able to work your way around that lab and do the math.
Do the math. That is really important. as we call it, death by decimal point.
because exactness accuracy is important.
It is critical
in science. So I think that's very key. So going to like leadership, what does leadership mean to you as a professor?
Again, I think leadership is really important in that I teach my students how to learn, that I help them build the skills that they need. And sometimes it is literally dragging or pushing that you can do this thing. It's not that hard, but the sound of it is, a molar solution. Oh my gosh, I could never do that. I hate chemistry. I've had, I don't know how many times I've heard that in my career, but convincing them that they can do that and empowering them to do those things for themselves, that it's practice, practice, practice. Okay? You have to memorize maybe a few things, write it down, put it in the front of your lab notebook, and then learn how to apply that. So sometimes leadership is a little bit of nudging, sometimes it's actually pushing, pulling, but really empowering those students. I have a lot of people who are upskilling or retraining altogether. And many times older students are really think that they can't do something. Math is really one of those things, and empowering them to do that. I've taken erasers away from people so that I can give them partial
I was getting
credit.
ready to say how, like how do you empower them? So okay.
And another thing I do is I want them to master the skills, not so it's not just about the grade. So I will allow them to do practice problems so that they can get half their credit back on a quiz grade. So 1 or 2 quizzes doesn't just, they failed the class and there's no coming back from them. From that, I want them to master the stuff, so I allow them to make corrections, but their corrections aren't just correcting that problem, but doing 10 more like it. And so I try to incentivize practice by giving them that their credit back. In the end, I would like them to all earn A's, but I don't give grades, I record grades. And so it's up to them, but I do everything I can do to enable that to happen.
That was powerful. I don't give grades, I record grades.
Yes.
Like going back to like you're saying, empower yourself. And I do a talk on empowering yourself to make an impact and being accountable for your own action or lack of action that led to this grade that you earned. So I'm going to have to use that with the kids.
Yeah. Well, they're like, do we have to do this? I'm like, this is college. You don't have to do anything. But there's a consequence to that. And at the end of the day, I will record that grade. It's super easy to record a 0. I don't have to grade anything, but that's not what you're here for. And so, if that's what you want to do, there's a consequence, but that's probably not your best choice.
Yeah. So if I wanted to be a part of this biotechnology program at Collin College, walk me through the process. How do I become one of your students?
It's as easy as applying to the college, getting enrolled. Collin College has the lowest tuition in the state, I believe, and being admitted to the college and then enrolling in the classes when registration opens. Our classes, our level 1 certificate doesn't have prerequisites for it.
That was my next question. Okay.
The advanced certificate has some prerequisites for general biology and genetics. So there's a TSI requirement, et cetera, for the core classes. But for the biotech courses themselves, there are not prerequisites.
Okay. So when you say biotech certificate, what is that and how long does it take to get the certificate?
So the level 1 certificate can be completed in a year. So it requires, there are 5 courses that are required, Biotech 1 and 2, a quality assurance class, and a bioethics class, and either an internship or cell culture techniques class.
So do I have to be really good at science?
No, you don't. We've converted a few people. They took the class, they're non-majors, they needed a science credit, and okay, this is what I'm going to do for my science credit, and just enjoy doing it so much. Kind of like me, it's like I didn't know I liked doing research, but they got in the lab and they realized that it wasn't the history class of many biology classes, but it's actually what's new and on the horizon, not what's in the past. And so
forward thinking.
Biotechnology is very forward thinking. We do go through a lot of history of how we know what we know, but especially with DNA and DNA technologies, but building on the future of medicine and the future of diagnostics, et cetera. And so it's a lot more exciting than some of the core courses of biotechnology. And then we try to incorporate research or some sort of project into our courses as well. So it allows those students to kind of explore some scientific method where you don't know the answer.
Oh, so actually getting to solve that problem and walking through the process.
Yes.
That's very great. I mean, that's very good. So so you have the certification that's a year.
Yes.
But there's also a different certification, right, with the Good Jobs Grant? Is that a little different, or is that all the same?
For Collin College, it's all the same. So we developed a kind of a shortened training program. We at Collin College just incorporated it into our own curriculum. We didn't really have a place for it for just a 10-week course. Tarrant College is offering a shortened program. The state of Texas, regionally, we are trying to develop a 10-week training course for biomanufacturing. So Texas Regional Industrial Biomanufacturing Certification.
Okay, so tell me a little more about that initiative.
So it is a collaboration of community colleges with Texas A&M National Center for Cell Manufacturing. And we are working to create a shortened training in biomanufacturing that will be consistent between all of the schools that are participating.
Okay.
And there will be a credential at the end of that will be specific for that particular training. And the idea there is that it would be very similar to what North Carolina has in their BioWorks program that was developed by their state and used as a recruiting tool that we can upskill, reskill, provide entry-level workforce for companies that will come to Texas.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And then we have multiple institutions that will provide the same training so that we can provide a lot of training fast.
Okay, so you're replicated and boom, boom, boom. We'll have really within reach of a lot of people.
Yes.
Because, it's strategically placed. I like that.
Yes.
It's exciting.
And we have the institutions are across the state are participating in it. We are all providing some part of the curriculum that will be offered. And then we'll have industry has discussed and gone over the workforce skills that they want incorporated in that.
Okay.
Once the curriculum is put in place, the industry will come back and vet that and say, yes, that's what we want. They will also look at the credential and say, yes, these are appropriate assessments of that credential.
So when will this program be up and running?
Excellent question. 2 grants were just submitted to one to the National Science Foundation Advanced Technology in Education program, and the other one was to another EDA another ADA grant. Hopefully one will get funded, and that will speed up the process.
Okay.
But we're hoping within a year that we'll have it put together. But
so stay tuned.
Yes, if we're funded, it'll go more fast.
Yes, and we'll get both of them, right? Because
I think we can only take one.
Okay. So what we want.
Right.
Okay, so we'll get. I feel confident.
I certainly hope so.
I mean, the whole state working together, I think leveraging all of the different teaching institutions that we have in place. And then also, like, you're already working with industry partners, so there's a need.
Right.
That's already been established.
And I was in North Carolina last week meeting with, met with some of the people who run the BioWorks program, and the need that industry has for that and the respect that they have for that type of training is great. They put that on as a hiring, either preferred hiring or a mandatory for hiring, and and it's because they have a known quantity to start with.
Okay.
And so it's a kind of a basic overview with some limited lab skills, but they know that those people that come out of there are trainable. So it really cuts down their onboarding time, and that's the important thing. Is if you know that this person kind of has been exposed to what is in a biotech lab and biomanufacturing and what they have to do, that cuts down the turnover rate. As many times people get into a biomanufacturing situation and they're like, I can't do this. It's monotonous maybe, or having to gown up. It's in a clean room. It's just not for everybody, and so it kind of cuts back on that.
And so that helps the employee get an understanding of what to expect in a future role, and then it also helps the employer understand that when I get somebody from this program, they're ready.
Right.
So that I like that win-win situation.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah. Okay.
And it also helps to breed some loyalty with the employee with the employer.
Yeah, and so will you have like outplacement services? Will we already have places once they're done with the program, they're able to secure a role?
That will be, if funded, that will be part of it, in which we're thinking of having a kind of repository of people who have jobs available and people who are looking for jobs, people who hold the credential, and that they will be a website where they can kind of meet together.
Okay.
And keeping track of people who have come out of the program successfully.
See, and I feel like you've done a lot of collaborating. Like you're always on the go. You're going here, you're going there, and I think that's critical. And talking to a lot of the folks in this biotech world and life sciences world, can you give us an example of some of the collaborations you're doing today with Collin College and industry partners, or even other? We talked about other academic institutions, so industry partners.
Right. We have had projects in our lab in the past where students participated in kind of a back burner type of project with an employer. In the distant past, we have provided lab equipment, lab space for employers to do some work in our lab, or we helped with a project. But I think, and then more recently, Panthera did some training for 8 of our students. Traveled to Fort Worth and did a 8-session training, I believe, with the Panthera folks. And so it's a great collaboration in which they give us feedback on how well our students are trained, what we can add to our programs. Mm-hmm. But it really gives the students a unique opportunity to have some hands-on training in that unique facility of quality and biomanufacturing that Panthera has. And so I think collaboration is the key. Mm-hmm. You know, there's so much opportunity. There's no reason to compete. It should be collaboration.
Collaboration. So you had the beauty of talking to some of the students, I'm sure, that went through the program. So what are some of the testimonials that you've heard from them?
A lot of them, you know, they came back and they've said, well, I now kind of have some more clarity of what I want to do kind of whenever I'm, as I move on, or that I want to keep going with my education because I want to keep moving through this. And so
okay.
They either one or the other has been the thing. And I'm all about, if you want to keep going with your education, let's see how we can help you with that too.
Oh, that's I didn't even think about that part, because there are some, like, yes, I have my certification, I'm going out, I'm ready to take on the world.
Right.
But then others are like, I want to do this even more and have a different role.
Well, a lot of times we have students who come into our classes who don't envision themselves as college graduates. they're, I'm barely going to make it through this. They don't even see themselves as making it through the program or the class. But they then kind of are empowered by, successes in the lab and their projects and that kind of thing, where they're like, I think I want to go on, and often they'll get a job and then they say, okay, I need more education in order to move up in the company. And, I'll hear back from them, will you please write me a letter? I'm going to get a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD. And so, over the years, I've written all those letters as well, and always, makes my heart glad whenever I hear back from students and they're happy with what they've done, and they're moving on and moving up. And that's the great thing about biotech too, is there are many pathways through that, where entry level with a certificate, work for a little while, work while you're going to school. There's a saying that if you're going to do dishes while you're going through school, why not do dishes in the lab instead of
That's cute.
and have that experience apply.
Yes.
And so, bachelor's, master's, PhDs, so that there's a lot of opportunities in biotech, a lot of on-ramps, off-ramps, back and forth.
And every time you talk about it, in my mind, I think about, people say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a teacher. But I wonder how many people say, oh, I want to work in biotech. I want to work in a lab. Because, what do you think about that? Like, you found out about it.
The hard way, as a master's student. I think we do. There are a lot of initiatives to inform people earlier, like middle school, high school, of what biotech is and what all the opportunities. We're still not doing a great job, but across the nation, it's highly recognized that people don't know what biotech is and all the opportunities for careers. Even in places like San Francisco and Boston, they have problems with recruiting. So imagine what Dallas, Fort Worth would have. I say that we need Super Bowl ads.
Yes.
But since we can't afford those,
yes.
I think this is a great opportunity to inform people that it is the skills that it's applied to doing a lot of things. I think one of the things that COVID did was brought to the forefront a lot of what biomanufacturing is, what testing is, that kind of thing, and that we need to do that in the United States and not rely on other countries to do it for us. I think quality assurance of, having people recognize the importance of that and those skills are critical. Whenever they're not done right, people die. And I think that recognizing that you can do good for humans, for animals, for the planet through biotech skills and in laboratories. People don't know that all of that is out there. And it's
here.
And it's here. It's
right.
here in Texas.
Right.
And the other thing is it's across the United States. It can be done in a lot of places. And more as, again, COVID helped us to recognize that there's initiatives to bring that into the more rural areas as well. So that there are going to be opportunities more and more places. So that's awesome, but people have to recognize what those opportunities are.
Right. So I think you said a couple of things that are career paths. We talked about working in the lab. You talked about quality. Right. I guess that also is that tied to the regulatory type of roles as well. Any other ways that I can get into this, or even that I would learn about by going through your program?
So one of the things we do is try to show students all of the opportunities that are out there. Food safety, food testing, developing food, and it's really funny. I didn't realize last year we did a tour where we went to a lot of Department of Defense facilities, developing foods for soldiers. I didn't know all the science that goes into that, and but developing Pepsi Cola, Frito-Lay, those types of companies, they have manufacturing processes. They have quality also, but there are a lot of lab jobs there. Daisy Sour Cream used to be one of the companies where our students did internships. So those type wastewater and environmental monitoring. So jobs.
That's right.
City jobs.
Yes, yes.
So city, county, state jobs for monitoring those types of things. Almost any interest you could have, there's probably a lab job somewhere that's associated with it.
Right, because that's how they detect there's West Nile in the water supply. That's lab work.
And
you don't even think about that.
Right.
Yes.
And various contaminants.
Yes.
Yes. So they're, and then, the development of different types of plants as our environment changes, of how can we help those plants adapt to different growing conditions. People are afraid of genetically modified organisms, but part of my teaching is that they're not to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of there. Mm-hmm. They need to be monitored, but it's really more of an opportunity rather than something to be afraid of. And so, and one of the greatest pleasures is those aha moments where students go, "Oh, that's all that is?" But, yes, indeed.
That's a part of it, taking the mystery out of it and having the exposure.
Right.
Because you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And, there's the Google scaring the heck out of you. And
yes, Dr. Google.
Yes. and when you Google some of those things, the first things that come up are the scary ones because they get the headlines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which makes sense. So we have to be able to weed through that, and that we can learn by going to Collin College or one of the consortium programs in the Metroplex. This is very fascinating to me because, again, I would have always thought, I have to be a PhD to work in a lab, or I don't have to work in a specific lab, because those skills are transferable, and you just named a whole bunch of different sectors and industries that require lab-related skills.
Right.
So even, yes, we talked about the biomanufacturing, but you could do animal science, you can do working for the government, and designing food for soldiers and astronauts.
Right.
That's huge.
Yes, and the military they have a lot of lab jobs that you are not required to be in the military to be able to do those jobs. There's a lot of actual I would guess there would be scholarship opportunities for people to go to work in one of those labs to pay off their student, and it's tuition and fees and books, and but they have to work in the military labs for a certain amount of time. But what a great opportunity, because some of the stuff that they're doing in those labs is super interesting.
It's all about innovation.
Innovation.
So I know we're coming to the close of our time. So what role do you see innovation playing in your program? So
for the most part, we stick with some pretty basic skills that we're going to apply to whoever. We have some pretty high tech. We have real-time PCR, and we do cell culture, so cloning plants, mammalian cell culture, making antibodies in our cells. But for the most part, we want to stick with these are the basic skills, and you can apply them to a lot of different
foundation.
The foundational skills, and you can apply them. We want our students to be able to think critically of what's wrong with this, because we don't always know the answer to the question. And I think that's really critical. That not only do you know when it's right, but you also know when it's wrong, and,
right?
And either say, we got to stop, and I don't know what to do, but I know I need to stop and ask, or be able to troubleshoot the problem in the process. And so I think those are kind of the biggest things. I think recently at a couple of life science summits that I've attended, hearing what people are working on, the new startup biotech companies, that is really inspirational to me, because just whenever you're like, oh, this world is going to hell in a handbasket, hearing all these inspirational stories is just makes my heart glad. That and then helping students to get into those companies, helping the companies, and those researchers are looking to save lives.
Yes.
And to do great things.
Yes.
They're not in it for themselves, and I think that people, if you look at some of the new startup biotech companies and the great things that they're doing, it does give you hope for the future.
Absolutely. And I love, we can end on hope with one question. So when you look to the future of this evolving life sciences and biotech sectors in North Texas, what will success look like, and what role will you say you played in this evolution?
Kind of like just a kind of a basic role. I wanted to support, with training and facilitating these companies that either are just getting started or as they are growing, to supply them with a workforce that is ready, and that our students will come out of our program being paid a fair wage and be able to make a living and being happy in doing it. Being able to recognize that they're helping others. I don't know of any biotech company that's just out there for no known purpose, but usually there is an end goal of helping others, much like the reason somebody goes into nursing or to become a doctor. That's kind of the goal that is the goal of these companies and the people that are running them. And I think that the more people know about that, the better.
Right. And then, speaking of, how do they find out about your program again?
You could go to the gobiotech.com website. Our college is listed with the other colleges there.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Kirkpatrick. I think that you are definitely one of the foundational members and an important part of this ecosystem as you're preparing our workforce to thrive in the life sciences and biotech industry. So thank you. Thank you for joining us. Your passion for educating future leaders in biotech is truly inspiring. To our listeners, we hope you gained valuable knowledge about the opportunities in biotechnology education and the essential qualities of effective leadership. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, and share it with anyone interested in the biotech field. You can also follow Acuity Acumen on Apple Podcasts. Remember, as we illuminate leadership and inspire change, every conversation contributes to our growth. Until next time, keep leading boldly and making an impact. Take care. Thanks for joining us on Acuity Acumen. I hope you found today's episode filled with insights that inspire change and drive your leadership forward. In a rapidly evolving industry, your role as a leader is crucial. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to catch our upcoming discussions. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Armstrong Walker Coaching and Consulting. Are you ready to elevate your impact? Reach out for personalized coaching or to explore Acuity Acumen Leadership Institute. Together, we can illuminate leadership and inspire change. Keep leading boldly and making an impact. Until next time.